A reading from Matthew. Jesus said to the 12 disciples, "Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I also will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And one's foes will be members of one's own household." I suspect that this passage was very disturbing for every one of the 12 disciples who heard Jesus say these words, and maybe to you as well. Needless to say, today's gospel reading wasn't among my dear departed mother's favorite Bible verses. She counted, among her children, an establishment Republican Church of Christ son, a Trump-voting Pope Benedict-style Roman Catholic daughter, another son who is an unpredictable wingnut, and then there is their younger brother, the one they consider a radical Episcopal priest planted on the North Fork of Long Island. All Mom wanted was for her family to get together every once in a while and for peace to prevail. So when we gathered around the dinner table at Thanksgiving and the conversation accidentally veered in the direction of politics or religion, Mom was likely to clear her voice and quietly inquire if anyone would like some more mashed potatoes. The idea of a Jesus who proclaims that he hasn't come to bring peace, but a sword, didn't sit well with the image that she and most of us have of Jesus the peacemaker, the nice Jesus, a Jesus who just wants everybody to be sweet to one another. This collection of sayings recorded in Matthew was probably written in response to real discord within Jewish families, with members who counted themselves among the growing numbers of Jesus' followers. Proclaiming oneself a follower of Jesus was likely to bring the unwanted attention of the Roman authorities, not just to the would-be Christian, but to their family and to the entire Jewish community. It was a community that was allowed to practice their religion as long as they didn't make waves. Jesus had made significant waves and had paid the price for unsettling the established order. Following the way of the cross wasn't what most parents wanted for their children, and it is likely that at the time when Matthew's gospel was written, arguments around the dinner table might actually lead to flashing swords. It'd be hard to make a case from reading this passage that Jesus was a defender of traditional family values. Jesus is typically an advocate for kingdom values, values that supersede narrow conceptions of what might constitute the family. The structure of families has evolved throughout history and varies from one culture to another. Throughout most of human history, a man had as many wives or mates as he could afford or defend. The family unit in which the husband goes off to work every day and the wife stays home with the children was a post-agrarian 20th century phenomenon that appears short-lived. What constitutes a family today is far different from what it was in our parents' day and will be different for our children's children. Now, this isn't the first time you have heard me talk about family systems theory. In particular, about how the traits and characteristics found within families of origin, organizations, and pertinent to us, churches, are passed down from one generation to another. And those characteristics, whether positive or negative, once they are established, are difficult to modify. So one church might have an established tradition of being generous and eager to share the monetary blessings they have received. Another church might have within its DNA a desire for social activism and always be ready to address needs and issues outside the walls of the church. Another church might have a reputation for hospitality. An important aspect of family systems theory is to remember that the founding members of our congregation formed and created the kind of church this will be for many generations into the future. The saints that have gone on before us have handed us a legacy. Part of that legacy is this beautiful worship space, an indication of the kind of dedication and commitment those earlier generations had to this church. We are no longer a young church, but we are a church that is going through a time of change and quite possibly growth. With that change comes a tremendous responsibility to be aware of the character traits and qualities that we as a people of God are practicing, because we will pass them on, just as our forefathers and mothers did, whether those traits be for good or for ill, to the saints that will follow us for years to come. In today's gospel lesson, Jesus is teaching the 12 about the high cost of their discipleship, how he came not in peace but with a sword, sowing discord among families, telling them that they aren't worthy of Jesus unless they take up their cross and follow him. There is a price to pay in order to follow Jesus. If someone had told me some 30 years ago when I joined the Episcopal Church that I would eventually be a priest at a church on the North Fork of Long Island, I might have joined the Rotary Club instead. But thankfully, the journey toward discipleship unfolds a little at a time. The word disciple actually means learner. We learn about the nature of our calling as we move more deeply into it. And we are often surprised by what we are called to do and by the hidden talents that emerge as we live into our calling as disciples. I know that for some of you, it is a surprise that you're even in church. And for others, it's a surprise that a church like this even exists. An authentic journey of faith is full of surprises. Who knows what God has in store for us next? Issued along with Jesus' call for discipleship is his assurance that there is nothing to fear. We have good news to proclaim, and we must proclaim it fearlessly. The outlandish way in which we have been called to welcome everyone into God's family would be very good news to many outside the walls of this church. We can't keep it to ourselves. We have to share it. I wish all of you could have heard the roaring applause from the crowd at the Pride Parade yesterday as we marched proudly through the streets of Greenport with our Holy Trinity and Redeemer banners unfurled. As Jesus told his disciples, "What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops."